So, I am sorry I'm a little late on my handout update, but I was so exhausted when I got home. I think I forget that if I'm running around in the heat, feels like 110. I have a medical condition. I'm not supposed to get overheated. My doctor would probably have a seizure if he knew what I was doing. Um, But I feel this is important, so I'm going to do it. So here is the star of this show, the buggy. Love that buggy. And the funny thing is, when I had this hand truck, when we had our business, I wasn't really a fan of this. I didn't like to use it at all, really. And now it's my best friend on the Bible handouts. And I handed out a whole crate of Bibles. I don't know how many exactly, but it was a whole crate, over a whole crate. So, sorry. I had a rough start. I don't know if I'm going to make a playlist and include the first video I made this morning, but I did not feel well at all. But I have experienced that several times when it's handout day that I don't feel well, so I go out anyway, and by the time I'm out there, I'm okay. So I think a lot of that is just a combination of the spiritual pushing the physical. And once the spiritual realizes, hey, I'm going out there anyway, then what's the point? So I can do it. So I brought over. I had a whole gallon of water by itself in my buggy, and my recipients, I love them so much. It's a terrible neighborhood. There's drug dealing across the street, and it's low income, high risk apartments, for lack of a better word, and in the area. And Mom's like, well, do they have any restaurants? No, not really, Mom. And they have head shops, a daiquiri place, some fast food over by the transit center, which is like a mile away, but no real places. And they just couldn't wrap their heads around the fact that every location at the venue will not allow me to use the bathroom, even if I offer to pay to use the bathroom. If I have cash in my hand, can I have $5? Can I please use your bathroom? No. So, and they laugh at me because, they could tell I'm needing it, but no. And so I'm only gonna ask the one time, and that's on you. I don't harbor any enmity, but on the other hand, am I gonna shop at these places? No. So I had a gallon of water in the bottom box of the buggy. I had 3 milk crates stacked up. I had my folding stool in my backpack, and I just was able to pop that out now and then. And then what I tried to do during the handout was just to sit as much as I could in the chair and just kind of rest. I didn't have an umbrella, but I had the hat, so I feel like that was a wash. And look at this baby. Look at that baby. I tried to make some room for her this morning when I was getting everything together, and I took most of what I was given, the Amazon deliveries, and I handed out probably half of it. The Here's Hope New Testaments were very, very popular. I was surprised because I had a lot of New Testaments, but that was the one they liked the most. And the last several times I've been out there, pretty much the minute I get started, people want the Bibles. And this young man in like a like a baggy cargo type shorts, and a brown hoodie, kept walking by and looking at my setup. And I said, come on over and shop, boss, help yourself. He's like, really? He said, I can have anything. I said, sure. And I had my little Bluetooth speaker with me, but that was clipped on my lunch bag. And that was off to the side. He wasn't going to take that. And it was like a little $10 speaker, if that. I was playing my hardcore praise playlist. I'll put up a link for that. And one interesting thing I have found is that a lot of recipients, if I play my music on the cell phone out loud, are very surprised at my taste in music, and they're like, oh, this is good stuff. They're very, very surprised I like this stuff. And so he sauntered on over, and he had a look, and there's a lady with him, and he picked something. He said, I can have this. I said, sure, absolutely. And she came up, and she was looking. I said, help yourself. I want, everybody to have a opportunity, basically. That was the gist of it. She said, okay. And he left, and he had a backpack with him. And he came back a couple minutes later, and he thanked me for the Bible. And I said, oh, that's great. And he was just looking at me, and I said, you're going to think I'm crazy. And I believe my disability gives me a level of innocence that some people can see, that I really just see you as a recipient only. I don't see anything else. So I hadn't, profiled him in any way. And he said, oh, okay. He came over, and I said, I would love to give you a hug. And he's like, what? And he just looked at me like he was just in utter shock. And I said, I'd love to hug my recipients. And he's like, okay. And he gave me a hug, and he left. And I kept seeing him every now and then. And then I saw him across the street with this backpack. And I realized what was probably in the backpack, along with the Bible, was likely some kind of weapon and some kind of illegal substance and whatever his profits were for the day. But he took the Bible, because I'm willing to stick my neck out. And if I have any virtue, I'll go. If God sends me, I will go. And it was funny, because when I was getting dressed today, I am trying in my personal life to just submit my life totally to God, all of it, every single detail. And I'm like, okay, Lord, what do you want me to wear? And I had a very, very strong leading to a performance polo in a teal color, kind of like my wall here, and my khaki pant cargo, my khaki capris that I wore yesterday. And I thought, oh, that's not really my style there, Lord. And I thought, I'm going to look like a salesman. And I could feel the Holy Spirit. And he's like, Heather. I'm like, yes, sir. He's like, you are a salesman. Oh, okay. So I wore it. And my orange sneakers, which are too tight now for some reason. I don't know why. And I think the recipients liked that I was a little bit dressed up for that neighborhood. And you don't see people walking around like looking like me, especially not with the buggy like I have. And it's notable. Plus, I got my Hope Dealer ball cap. And I had a young lady pull up in a car, and she was a couple cars back, but she had her window down, which means she didn't have AC. And she waved at me, and I went over carefully, because it's not even once I step away from the intersection. So I basically have to walk in the street carrying some Bibles and the sign. And I went over her, and I had, some stuff. And she had a look and she took all of it, I think. And she looked at my hat. She said, "Oh, you're a Hope dealer, huh?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "Yeah, we need them." And she left. So I really want to get my chisel tip marker. Unfortunately, the cap came off somehow and it dried out. So I wasn't able to use it today. But I'm going to get another one. And some poster board. I think I'm out of poster board. And make two signs. One, I have kids stuff, and another sign that says Espanol, and put that on the buggy, because I have small poster boards like 12 by 18 on the buggy right now, and they say free Bibles. And if you come at me from pretty much any angle, if my back is to you, you can still see the sign on the buggy. And there was a guy going down, he was going east on Greens Road, and he saw the buggy and he just started laying on the horn. He put his window down, and I turned. I thought maybe he wants a Bible. And he yelled something like, "Way to go, sister. He's coming back. He's coming back." And I thought, and I was waving at him and smiling. And it's true. He is coming back. And I had a couple other people that drove by and they just kind of gave me a thumbs up or nodded or whatever, which I thought was cool. Because we are all called differently by God, but I think He wants us all to witness as much as possible to the people He sends to us. Now, I have a very unique mission field. Homeless people, service providers, working people, blue collar people, kids in vocational schools, people who ride the bus, the lady who works at the Vietnamese market, the butcher at the Vietnamese market. Just very, very interesting spectrum there. And people who have just had unspeakable tragedies in their lives. And I'm very grateful, and I'm very cognizant of the fact that I need to serve these people however God has called me to serve. So I want to do that. And He's really put it on my heart lately for the bus drivers, how hard it is for them and how much they need His love and just a kind hand, if at all possible, just to, But so I was out there for 2-ish hours, and I handed out a whole crate. I got everything strapped up again, and while I was working, I had over a gallon of drinks. My very last recipient was very interesting. He came up and he was on a bicycle and he was yelling something about a soda. I thought he was going to bring me a soda at first, which I would have loved. And he got up on the median with me and he walked over and I said, "Have a look." And he did. And he said, What, you got Spanish? And he started picking up different things. I said, "Yeah, help yourself. You can have everything there." And he said, "Oh, okay." I said, is this for kids?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, I got a daughter." So, he got some kid stuff. And he was looking at me with his arms full of Bibles. And he said, I really want to get a cold drink. Do you have $1? And I fibbed. I said, "No, I didn't." I said, "But I do have a cold soda." He said, "Really?" I said, "Do you like the zero drinks?" He said, "Yeah." And I had one drink left. And if you know me, I am passionately devoted to my diet soda. And I gave him my last cold soda. And he was happy to get it. And then I think he went and bought drugs, but he got the Bibles first. So, but yeah, that was my last recipient. So, well, at the venue. And I was took me a minute to get everything packed again because I want to have everything stable and secure. I don't want to collapse if I hit a pothole crossing the street or something. And I was thinking, I have a medical condition where I lose salt. I've been working in the heat for 2 hours plus, and I need a serious amount of salt here, and I need a bathroom, and a friendly bathroom, for we'll say, and I could probably stand to eat too. And I thought, what is going to work for me? And I went over to the bus stop and I was thinking about it, and then I realized McDonald's. I was certain McDonald's was going to have a lot of sodium in it, which is what I needed. So I went to McDonald's, and they had to buzz me into the bathroom. I thought that was so sad. But they did. And I got the kids' meal, the 4-piece chicken nugget. That wasn't too bad carb-wise, even with the apples. And then I got a large unsweet iced tea, which is always a safe bet at a venue. They're going to have that. They're not going to have any kind of good diet soda ever, but they'll have unsweet tea, and the ice is great. So I had that. I just sucked that thing dry like a vampire, and I went back to the transit center, and I thought, I'm ready to have some fun, and I had a little cash on me. I said, you know what? I'm going to go to Value World. So I got on the 85, and I told her I'm going to Pinemont. She's like, really? And, we chatted a little off and on. And got off at Pinemont, went to Value World, got some clothes, which I will do a unboxing video on that. And I had just enough change to go over to Gordon Foods next door and get 30 more eggs. So that will definitely hold me until payday. And I was able to pack that carefully on the top of the buggy and get them home. I'm pretty sure they're all okay. Safe, because I hate to waste food, And when the bus came, it was like 15 minutes late. The driver just looked so persecuted. And he saw me in the buggy, and he's just like, oh no. I could just see the migraine starting. And I said, no, I got this, boss. And I got it on easily because it was a lot lighter. One, I drank all my beverages. And two, I'd given away all these Bibles. So it had some weight, but it wasn't bad. And I could do that all day long. So I got that up, and that was not a problem. And I paid, and he just kind of looked at me like, wow, you paid. And I smelled okay. And I went, and the only seat available was next to this guy. And he was dressed in expensive clothes, but his body odor was rancid. Just when I'm on the bus and I have to deal with that, I just think of that old disco song. We want the funk. Get up off that funk. Oh, it's just the funk was, the funk. And I'm just choking on it. And I'm thinking, I don't want anything for dinner now. But, I had to take my pills so I don't get a migraine tomorrow. And I'm not even going to think about food. And the driver kept picking up these people. They were very difficult. They're just big attitude. I don't have to pay. I'm having a bad day. I don't have to pay. But, just that kind of stuff. And I don't work for free. He shouldn't work for free either. Now, admittedly, I'm only paying 60 cents, but I'm going to pay it. So, I have a disabled card. And the only thing I've ever taken for being disabled. And so I just, and I was just sitting there, and the guy across, there were some homeless guys, and they were mocking me for some reason. And I'm just thinking, the demons that I believe that if you have untreated severe mental illness, it opens you up to demonic influence. I believe if you have an addiction, drugs, alcohol, that kind of thing, that opens you up to a demon. If you put the two together, you are almost certain to have someone who has demonic influence in their experience. So they were, making derisive comments and whatever. I didn't even respond. I just put my headphones in and I was listening to my music. And when I opened my eyes, the one guy across the way he was either filming me or taking pictures. I don't know what. But I thought, like I said, I am very, very committed to serving God. And I feel sometimes if I am on a bus and I'm listening to worship music, I like to sit and have my hand in my lap like this and just, it just feels right. Now, this feels right too, my sweetheart. And if I'm praying for somebody, the hand goes up like this, and I just, and it may be like pointing towards the front of the bus. It may be pointing like an accident if we're going by, but the hand is going to go up. And, I'm fine with that. And there are so many just wrong things that happen on these buses. Me and my little postures are nothing. So, but he apparently found it entertaining, I don't care, but that bus needs a lot of prayer. And the poor driver, he was so happy to get the packet, and I had a cold drink for him. Oh, he was so happy. Hi. Yes, you're the big. Yes. And so I got to my house, and Dad called, and he was, I had sent a picture of a shirt to Mom yesterday, and I said, I always think about Dad when I see this. And it was one of those graphic t-shirts. And she's like, oh, he doesn't need a new shirt. I said, no, I'm not going to buy it. I just think about him when I see it. And Dad was apparently had heard about that and was like, are you buying me a shirt? I'm like, no, I'm not buying you a shirt. So, but, and then I talked to them as I got the buggy home. And I didn't have any problems in the neighborhood getting the buggy home, but that was it. And when I got in the house, I was so tired. And I parked the buggy, I got the eggs in the fridge, and I went to bed. And I ate some cheese and took my pills, and that worked okay. And unfortunately, the allergy pill decided to make me hyper tonight, and it also is giving me a ferocious dry mouth. But I can't drink my soda because of this here. But that is the store brand Diet Mountain Dew Zero. It's not bad. Don't put it in a water bottle though. But this is the baby. You got a booger. You got eye boogers. You got eye boogers like an old man. But that was the handout. And please pray for the recipients and my bus drivers. They're having a hard time, guys. And my store, it's a Walmart. I won't say which Walmart, but my store, corporate management, just things like that for my protection in just every way you can think possible: physical, mental, spiritual, employment, transportation, the house, please, all of it, please, because bad things don't like Bible handouts. They don't like me doing outreach at all. They just don't mind protection for my cats because I love them. Yes, I do. Anyways, that is it.